Hey chicks, let's chat. So this is a different edition, right? This is the landlord edition. So instead of just general female topics, I'm gonna talk about my experience as a landlord, right? So a couple years ago, I decided to rent out a property that my father had blessed me so kindly with, right? Paid off property. Um, I actually was living there at the time, and I was paying him rent, and he eventually paid off the unit. And for one of my birthdays, he gave me a proposition if I wanted to get the unit now, because eventually it was going to be mine anyway. If I wanted to go ahead and get it now, but then I would take over all the responsibilities of getting it now, or if I just wanted to wait until his demise and then inherit it that way, right? So, it was kind of like a trick question to me a little bit, because I'm used to being able to call him and be like, hey, whatever is wrong, and he take care of it, right? So, but then I was like, okay, well, I ain't gonna have to pay no more rent. So, I asked a couple people that I could really, trust or whatever. And it was like, nah, go with it now. Tell them now. So that's what I ended up doing. Now, his reasoning behind it was that he didn't like my payment history, put it like that. So, of course, time 2, 3 or 4, I was late. But you know what? Don't worry, I have reaped all of that since then. Because I will say this, well, I get into that. So anyways, long story short, I ended up owning the place I was already living at, right? So after a while, I was like, now I ain't even gonna say after a while. I was living where I could afford to live, right? And I didn't necessarily want to keep staying there, but that's what I could afford at the time, right? So my job had me working out of a different city. And I really had planned to move to that city. So when the opportunity arose that I could, now I could rent this place out and get, money for it, then I was like, okay, let me do that. Then I can move to where I want to move at, right? So anyways, that's what I did. Became a landlord in that way. I put the sign, I went to Home Depot, got a sign, and I was walking out with the sign, and somebody was asking me, and I was like, excuse me, I was like somebody need, like people need places that bad, So, yeah, evidently. So I put the sign in my yard. Soon as I put the sign out in the yard, like people was stopping by, people was coming by, like quicker than I expected, right? So I knew what I was looking for, right? And that's what I would say. Number one, as a landlord, have in mind what it is that you're looking for. Have an ideal tenant. Do you want a mom, single mom? Do you want an older couple? Do you want, you want to rent to like college people? Have something in mind, right? That have an ideal clientele, right? Initially, I knew that I wanted someone with a stable income because I didn't want to miss my coins, right? So I was hearing the things that, some of the people was coming by saying them, but nobody had really, left any kind of mark. So I remember I was at work one day and I got a call and I couldn't hardly understand the guy. But what I did understand was Social Security and pension. I understood that. I said, I tell you what, I'll be there in 30 minutes. Because that's what I was looking for. Stability, right? So I get there. It's an older guy. He got all his paperwork showing me that he get his check on the regular, boom, boom. Okay. That's what I wanted right there. He had money he had the move-in money that I was asking for. Okay. I showed him my spot, how I had it. Brought him in, let him see that. Boom. It was the go. His wife, she wanted to go. She was ready ASAP. Now, I hadn't planned on moving for a couple months, but the lady was like, "Man, I really want to be in here before my birthday." Da 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 da. So I was like, "Well, I guess that means I'm gonna have to move out earlier than I expected." So I did that. I hollered at one of my homegirls. I was like, "Hey, I need a spot for a couple months. I'm finna rent out my spot. Then I need to find me a spot." So she had a house, Habitat house. It was just only her there. So I rented out one of her rooms, paid her monthly what I could afford to pay her. I ran the price by her. I was like, "Hey, can I give you this? Is this good enough or whatever?" She said yes. I was like, "Okay." So did that for a few months. Until I found somewhere that I wanted to stay in the city that I wanted to stay in, right? So, time goes past. I found my little spot, and my new tenants, they're living in their spot. Ideally, they are the perfect people. I don't really have any issues with them. Maybe had a couple of times they were late in terms of not giving me all the money on time. Might be a couple $100 short. So he said, "Okay, well, when I get my next check, I give you that or whatever." So I'm like, okay. I try not to be too hard on the shortcomings because I understand that everybody can have them. Everybody have them. Some way or another, you're gonna come up short sometimes. It's a possibility. So I try to understand that, right? Now, when it get out of hand, then I lose understanding. When it's a constant, when it's a every month, when it's too many times out the year, okay, that's annoying to me, right? And the thing is, what I learned is that, like, you can't make people have it. It don't matter how pissed off you are. It don't matter how bad you needed the money. When that rent is due, either they have it or they don't have it. So that means either you're going to get it on time or it's going to be late. Those are the only two scenarios. So that has to be something that you're prepared for financially. Was I necessarily prepared for it when I jumped out there head first like that? Absolutely not. So this is my second lesson to give to everybody who feel like, "Oh, I'm going to just get a spot and rent it out." If you're not financially prepared, you don't have a good solid, savings, so that when they don't pay you on time, or if something needs to be fixed, and it's a huge amount, if you don't have that going on, where you could tap into those funds, and you desperately depending on your tenant, they're going to frustrate you. Because it's going to be a time or two when they don't have it, or they don't have it all, or they don't have it right now. So make sure you come into that landlord game with a nice little foundation, and you don't need the money that the tenant give you, right? Whatever the tenant give you is extra, but it's not anything that you're absolutely depending on for anything that you might need or anything that you might want. Okay? I went wrong there. So that's why I can sit and tell the next person, "Hey, how your coins lined up?" Because one thing about it, anytime you have a property and you the sole person responsible for it, things are going to happen on that property, whether it's intentional or accidental or just life things that happen. Something will need to get fixed. And my place was in a pretty good condition. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really had been well taken care of over the years. But life happens. Stuff gonna happen with electrical. Stuff happens with AC. Stuff happens with appliances. Like stuff happens with flooring, like wear and tear, it happens. It's life. So you have to be in a financial situation to make sure that those things are up to par, or at least up to par for your renters. And that's gonna be depending on who you rent to, because if you may come across people who are looking for modern, extravagant, da da da. If you know that your place isn't super modern, it's just a basic, hey, you can move in here for now till you find something better, then you ain't really catering to the people who want a lot of bells and whistles and this and that. And to be honest, when that's your rental property, unless you moved out of the house and it had bells and whistles, when that's your rental property, you're not even really doing a whole bunch of bells and whistles. Why? Because what you will find out is that people don't take care of property the way you feel they should, or the way you may have, right? And then what you come to realize also is that when a person has been used to living in an apartment where everything get done for you, you can call in a request, boom, boom. Then when they go to living in a single family home or a duplex or something like that, basically now they're taking on the role of a bonus owner, put it like that. So those kind of things come with, it's a difference in living in a home versus living in an apartment complex. So when you picking your people, you need to think about, are you picking somebody who don't have a clue about life and they just want somewhere to stay, or they have, lived in a home so they know how to change a filter, or they know how to keep the yard cut, they know how to do different things like that? Because you're going to be pissed off and disappointed if you pick a tenant who all they know is apartment living, or all they know is living with their parents and they're not responsible, and then you expecting them to know that, hey, this yard need to be cut, or this filter needs to be changed on this AC unit, or hey, if it's an outdoor closet or whatever, it either needs to be, looked in, kept up, locked, or if it's kept unlocked, make sure ain't nothing in it, make sure ain't nothing growing in it. Like, the property needs to be checked on more than just like an apartment or something would, Look around the house. Don't say, oh, I don't never go in the backyard, but you live here. You know what I'm saying? So that goes into, again, the type of tenant that you picking. Have an idea of, the kind of person that you, and I'm not going to say just, only rent to men or something, because they're going to, be more adamant about property and this and that. Well, it depends on the man. It depends on the type of man. So I would never say that, because, it is women who, they like to keep up yards and pay attention to, and ideally women pay more attention to detail than men anyways. But sometimes a man will be more proactive around the house, make sure the garbage get out, make sure the garbage can is clean, stuff like that. So that's why I say take all those things into consideration whenever you're picking your tenant. Take into consideration their history. And you may not necessarily know everything. And if they got a bad history, they're not going to tell you everything anyways. But have you lived in the house before? Or where you coming from? That type of stuff. You can get some answers out of them that they may not necessarily be willing to disclose to you, Make sure you have extra money for the things that, not if they happen, for when they happen, because they will. Make sure that you have, your stuff official in terms of, you need a application. You need to charge them an application fee. Yeah. You need a rental agreement if you planning on giving them a lease. Right? But even if you don't want to give them a 6-month lease, you could get them a month. Even if you don't want to give them an annual lease, you could get them a month-to-month lease. It is always good to have some type of paperwork. And I say that, and do I always do it? Should I? Depends on the situation. Like, for instance, Um, my last renter, I started out with a lease, but because I didn't like the way they were paying me, then I didn't renew the lease, right? So in Florida, no lease is the same as a month-to-month lease. Now, could I go in Home Depot or Office Depot and get a month-to-month lease? Yeah, I could. I could do that. Or do I just know that since you don't have no lease with me, that's really how the court's going to look at it, and they're going to look at it as no lease. So if I need to put you out, then I don't have the same, I shouldn't have to jump through the same hoops as a person with a lease. So that's my other reason for not re-upping the lease, so that it could be easy on my part if I need to get that person gone or whatever. You need to have a good understanding of that this was your place, but now it's not your place anymore, right? And sometimes your feelings be tied up in it. But for your rental property, you got to get your feelings out of it, because I can say it's times that I went in my house and I'm just like, oh my goodness, Lord, help me. Like, golly, because I know how I had, things going on when I was in this same place. So then when you walk in it and it don't even look like a place that you recognize, you got to get out your feelings, because what you be wanting to say, hey, well, they need to pack it up. I don't even want them in my house, So you got to get out your feelings about your property, But the thing is, that's a catch-22, right? Because if you get all the way out your feelings about the property, then you could become a slumlord, because you like, they ain't gonna take care of it anyway, so I don't care. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta care somewhat. You got to care because it's yours. You're the owner. It's still a reflection of you. So you have to care enough about it to want to keep it up, right? But you can't care so much about it that you're in your feelings when you see them not keeping it up. That's the caveat to that, and a lot of times, you can't go in, see how they were living before they come and rent from you. So you don't know that they don't like to clean up, or you don't know that, they're going to have X amount in the house when only 2 or 3 on the lease, Now that's one thing that I was big on, is making sure when I was vetting people, is like, hey, however many people you tell me you're going to be here, let that be the amount of people that's going to be here. Because don't tell me it's going to be 3 people, then I come here and you got 2 additional families in here. That's not going to sit well with me. So you have to be straightforward when you're doing the landlord thing, and you have to mean what you say, and you have to say what you mean. Because what I realize is that people going to push you to all kinds of limits. It takes a level of maturity, right? Because what I have realized is that you can't say everything that's on your mind and on your heart, right? This is your business per se, and you could do it, but do you really want to do it? Is that what you're trying to, present into the world? No, I don't care to present a cussing landlord to the world. But do the landlord got to cuss every now and again to get her point across? Yes, she do. Sadly, I do. I don't want to, because that's not the mood, that's not the vibe. I should be able to articulate myself in a better way, right? Says my educational level, says my maturity and spiritual level. But when you're dealing with certain people, you cannot assume that people think like you, people feel like you, people see what you see, people understand what you understand. And that is where the frustration, the aggravation, that's where all of that stuff comes in at, and it gets mixed up, and it's going to cause you to say a few words that you might not want to say, cause you to text a few things that you might not want to text. Because what you have to understand, and this has been one of the best experiences for me to understand this. Because you see something a certain way does not mean they see it that way. Because you feel a certain way about something does not mean that they feel that way about it. Because you can see it from this perspective does not mean that they give a rat's behind about that perspective, right? You always operating from a tenant perspective. As a landlord, you always operating from a landlord's perspective. You always dealing with your tenant like a tenant. Where the problem comes in at is if you're a landlord like myself, you got kind of like a kind heart when it comes to certain things and certain situations. You start looking at your situation from a tenant perspective. Well, oh, I know they need this. Well, oh, I know such and such. If I do this, then the kid's going to take a hit. Do yourself a favor and don't start ever thinking like that. Keep yourself in the frame of mind of landlord. Keep yourself in the frame of mind of what you care about, which is your situation with your property. And if that tenant is able to keep up the end of the bargain. Once you start putting yourself in your feelings and caring about stuff more than they care about it, that's when you put yourself in the tenant shoes. And then that's when the landlord gonna start taking a loss, right? Because you operate from the tenant perspective. Oh, I needed this. Oh, I needed to do that. I'm not saying you can't offer no grace, because everybody gonna need some sometime. But what I'm saying is, when it comes to business, you got to be able to deal with them from a business perspective. See, there's times when I say, I've been in this situation where the tenant say, oh, well, my light bill is this. If I pay you, I ain't going to be able to pay the lights. Now, most people, what you going to say to that? Am I going to really say, well, just give me my money? I don't care if you sit in the dark. Some people will. I ain't built like that, right? Because I already know that if I pay it and the lights ain't on, I don't even want to be here. Because I don't want to sit up in here and it's hot, right? So then I start to have a little understanding of, okay, well, guess what? That means I'm going to have to take my money on the back end the next time they get paid or whatever. I see those are situations that I have allowed myself to be in before. But guess what? Those are the situations that I'm not allowing myself to be in anymore. Because sometimes you can't kill. Sometimes you got to get to the point where I don't care about whatever your other situation is. You got to run me my coins. You got to run me my money, and you got to figure out everything else on the back end. Do that seem selfish? It seems selfish. Until you run into people that know how you operate, and then they start playing on that part of you. That they know you ain't going to tell them, no, just give me my money. So then they always got a sob story for you. So then they always got something that keeps coming up. So then they always got a reason why it's this, that, or the third. You see what I'm saying? So then you have to, they will make you stop giving them grace. They will make you stop caring about whatever their situation is. Because now you start to feel like, oh, they playing me. You know what I'm saying? Now you playing me. You instead of you saying, hey, I'm going to go ahead and make sure the landlord have their thing, they start saying, oh, I could give that to her later. Or I could give that to him later. No. Don't make them later. You make them now you. Yeah. Don't make them put you in that predicament where they save you for later. Make them now you. Make them know you want yours now. Run the coins immediately. Yeah. It's unfortunate that people will make you change your perspective on stuff. I remember all I used to hear was people saying, especially like dudes in the street, oh, I'm gonna give me a couple properties and rent them out. It seemed like the easiest thing in the world. It's not. You deal with so many different personalities. You deal with so many different dynamics, you know. And it's not that everything is negative. You know, it's not that everything is negative. And even when things are negative, it's not always negative. And see, that's one thing I had to learn to balance out, is that I couldn't have an attitude when a person called me to say, hey, this, that, or the third is going on, because I don't have no attitude when that cash app come through. I don't have no attitude when I'm going to pick up my coins. So ain't no point in having no attitude on the back end when you got to kick out some, because you're going to have to kick out some. You know, overall, do I think being a landlord is worth it? I think that if you pick right, meaning you have a certain niche in mind and you pick your tenants carefully, if you're financially prepared for what is to come and you're not dependent upon them, and you take your feelings out of your property and you understand that now, you know, you're allowing them to be there. So you have to respect how they live and get out your feelings, because everybody don't live like you. If you can do those things, then you can have a successful situation being a landlord. But I do think it takes a level of intuition. You got to have some insight. You got to have some patience. You got to have some understanding. You're going to have to execute some grace from time to time. But you're going to have to operate in a way that you're not in your feelings about their situation, whatever it is. If you're going to be in your feelings about any situation, let it be your own. Let it be your own. Because once you start thinking about all the things, oh, they need to do this, I found myself thinking about, oh, okay, well, school time gonna come. They're gonna have to get shoes and they're gonna have to get clothes and stuff for school. So I might not want to do this in August. Well, I might not want to do it in December neither, because I know how Christmas is gonna be. I find myself doing all those things. Okay, well, if I'm gonna raise the rent, let me raise it around income tax time, because they'll be, you know, I find myself feeling like, you know, I'm working strategically because I'm trying to work with a person. But when it comes down to it, move accordingly. Move accordingly to what makes sense for you. Because see, while you trying to be strategic and make life so much easier for other people, them same people act like you ain't did nothing for them. Act like, so what? So what? Not knowing that you done set and made decisions based on when you feel it might be a little better for them. Don't do that. Make your decisions, stand on your decisions, and either they can live up to it or either they can't. And that's that. So that's my coverage of being a landlord for y'all. Any questions, hit me up in the comment section or whatever. But you know, at the end of the day, I say take care of your property, love your people if you can. If you can't, that's fine too, but take care of what's yours. You know, don't be a slumlord. Treat people respectfully. When it get to the point where you can't be respectful to whoever you rent to, get them gone. Because there's so many people who need a place to stay. There's so many people who are willing and will do right by your generosity and your space. Don't ever feel that, you know, you're stuck in those situations, whether you're a tenant or whether you're a landlord. Guess what? The door is open for both of y'all. You can exit left, they can exit right. Don't ever feel stuck. Y'all enjoy your day.